hit the fiscal cliff. It was a sunny day down in Washington. I took my Chevy out for a spin. While I was stopped at a light, I saw some cars to my right, and then what happened nearly did me in. House Speaker Boehner pulled his wheels next to Senator Reed's, and then they got into an awful tiff. So Boehner said, let's fight, and Reed said, yeah, you're right, let's have a drag race to the fiscal cliff. Fiscal cliff. Fiscal cliff is a danger zone. Fiscal cliff. It's where grown men go when budgets are blown. Fiscal cliff. If our senators cannot agree, fiscal they make cliff. Massive cuts automatically. Fiscal cliff. When the budget talks have come to a halt, fiscal cliff. People go there and they threaten default. What will happen if we hit the fiscal cliff?
If Congress does nothing, every family in America will see their income taxes automatically go up on January 1st. Every family, everybody here, you'll see your taxes go up on January 1st. I'm assuming that doesn't sound too good to you. That's sort of like the lump of coal you get for Christmas. That's a Scrooge Christmas. It's not acceptable to me, and I don't think it's acceptable to you, for just a handful of Republicans in Congress to hold middle-class tax cuts hostage simply because they don't want tax rates on upper-income folks to go up.
Hear me. I am your new president. From this day on, the official language of San Marcos will be Swedish. Silence! In addition to that, all citizens will be required to change their underwear every half hour. Underwear will be worn on the outside so we can check. Furthermore, all children under 16 years old are now 16 years old.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
Step away from the cliff. There's plenty of time to go over. But now it's time for another edition of Internet Fastener Talk Radio. That's right, Eric Dudas here, along with Brian Musker, and we're so glad you're with us again as we begin another experiment in predominantly fastener-related podcasting. You had no plans of going over the edge, did you, Brian?
Oh, no. I couldn't possibly fall. I've got a whole Christmas dinner party we've got to cook up on Saturday.
Oh, what's on the menu this time?
Prime rib. Actually, that's always on the menu. The difference is the way I cook it.
Well, you always do a great job. I'm looking forward to that, buddy.
And I haven't worked out which soup I'm cooking yet because I always cook a different soup. So
I'm voting for mushroom this year.
No. Votes don't count. This is a little bit like how the federal government works. It's absolutely autocratic.
Well, we've got plenty of time to think about autocracies and menus, but right now it's time for a little online Fastener Talk Radio. This is Fully Threaded Radio, episode 55, and we're publishing on December 13th, 2012. Our feature segment today is a conversation with the outspoken president of Kerr Lakeside, Mr. Charlie Kerr. Charlie talks with us about what he's seeing in the industry right now and what the infamous fiscal cliff might mean for family-owned fastener companies. Those of you who have heard him speak before know that Charlie Kerr is no slouch when it comes to looking down the road, and I'm sure listeners will find this a highly informative segment. On Mike McNulty's Fastener News Report today, we'll hear all about the latest FDI numbers, which dropped again in November. But analyst Holden Lewis explains where the possible silver lining in all of this might be. Also, Mike talks to Ruth Dowling of Ningbo Jinding about her experience at the recent Brazil Fastener Show in Sao Paulo. And don't miss Mike's back page report today. This is classic McNulty, in which he looks back at his 2012 predictions and lays out his forecast for the year ahead. And as if all that wasn't enough, we've got details on the new era of the NFDA, as described by NFDA President Mr. J. Queenin. I had a conversation with him just yesterday, and we'll play that in just a few minutes. There's also some news to report from the Midwest Fastener Association and the North Coast Fastener Association, plus numerous other tidbits for you on this very special last episode of the 2012 season. Can you believe it, Bri?
It's not really the Christmas episode, but it's a Christmassy episode.
Oh, we've got a few little ring dings here and there that'll let you know it's Christmas time.
Okay.
But before we get to all of that, folks, let's recognize our title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio, and they are Stellfast. For service you deserve and people you trust, it's Stellfast. And Beacon Fasteners and Components. Check out their line of machine screws today. Beacon Fasteners. Nice threads. Fully Threaded is also sponsored by Trinity Hardware Headquarters, Fastenal, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Fastener Technology International Magazine.
Now, I'd like to personally thank these people for their sponsorship for the last year, and I'd also like to thank global warming for the fact that I can look outside and see no snow.
I'm a huge fan of that too, man. Point. Well, we're going to hear a word from just a few of these most excellent aforementioned companies to get things kicked off, and then we'll dig right in.
This is Dan Kulik from Stellfast in Cleveland. Stellfast would like to thank you for all your support in 2012 and look forward to strengthening these relationships and continued support through 2013. Feel free to contact us at any of our locations across the U.S. For your fastener needs, visit our website at www.stellfast.com to learn more about our product offering and services that we have available for you. From all of us at Stellfast, we would like to wish you and yours a safe and happy holiday season and prosperity in the coming new year. And of course, stay tuned to Fully Threaded Radio for insights and the latest information on what's happening in the fastener industry.
It's a screwy world out there, what with outsourcing, celebrity apprentices, crop circles, beavers, gargers, those shorts that are almost pants, and mimes. But when you think about it, saying the world is screwy is just unfair to screws, which ironically are what hold the whole world together. And the finest screws out there are supplied by Beacon Fasteners and Components. We can say that because our products are laboratory tested. Twice. Beacon Fasteners and Components also has the largest inventory in the industry, including thread forming, thread cutting, high-low tapping, SEMS, sheet metal, and our new machine screws. And they're all available RoHS compliant. Give Beacon a call today and one of our knowledgeable sales staff will guide you through the ordering process. Then we'll track your shipment, which is one less screwy little detail for you to worry about. Visit us at beaconfasteners.com. It's a screwy world, but Beacon is on top of it.
Looking for package fasteners of all kinds? How about specials or unique parts that no one seems to carry? At Trinity Hardware Headquarters, we believe in parts done right, and our new catalogue is available online at trinityhardwarehq.com. featuring over 30,000 different types of fasteners available in package quantities, product kits, and assortments, including hundreds of hard-to-find parts as well as the most popular inch and metric sizes. Trinity Hardware Headquarters has locations throughout the Midwest and South and over 400,000 square feet of warehouse space with 18 million pounds of fasteners ready to fill your requirements. Our featured products include number 3 and number 7 head plough bolts, grade 5 and grade 8 carriage bolts, hook bolts, tap bolts, and nuts and washers of all kinds, plus much more. Visit our website at www.trinityhardwarehq.com or give Trinity Hardware Headquarters a call at 888-232-1010. Trinity Hardware Headquarters, for parts done right.
Hi, this is Matt with ICS Flange, the only flange, bolt, and nut company you'll ever need. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric giving the gift of Fastener Talk Radio this season.
And what a great gift that is.
I agree.
And wildly undervalued.
Yeah, that's the understatement of the season. Well, you were mentioning before the break that you're grateful for the sponsorship that we've received this year from all of our great sponsors, and I'd like to second that because without them, who knows where Fully Threaded Radio would be right now, and it has been a great 2012 for us, and just another hats off to all of them. Also, in light of the fact that we occasionally go off the tracks a little bit in our pursuit of predominantly fastener-related talk radio, and just like to point out that our views do not necessarily represent those of our sponsors, and somehow they bear with us, and we really, really thank them.
Sometimes our views do not. It's probably quite often.
Are you saying this is the show of understatement so far? Is that what you're saying?
I was thinking that way, yeah.
Well, maybe you have some thoughts on all of that, folks. Maybe you agree with us, or maybe you don't. But either way, why don't you get with us and let us know? You can email us at the address ftr@fullythreaded.com, and our Twitter account is Fully Threaded. Also, if you're a Facebooker, you can get with us that way. And check out our Facebook page when you get a moment, because we put supporting links out there from the show. And a lot of times if we talk about a subject, you'll see extra information out there on our Facebook page.
Right, and just about Facebook, I would like to point out that, a couple of months back we had a push to get over 500 likes on our over 100 likes on our Facebook page because something was meant to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I can't tell that anything happened, okay? It looks exactly the same as it used to.
Didn't we get a coupon for some free advertising from Facebook, though? Didn't Zuckerberg send us a special invitation to spend money with him?
Yeah, a free coupon to spend money, right.
Well, we're up to 105 likes as we record this, and my only conclusion from that is that the fastener industry is not really heavy into Facebook.
No, either that or no one at all is involved in Fully Threaded Radio or listens to it, because in an industry of, say, whatever it is, 4,000 to 6,000 companies, 20 to 50,000 people, 105 people doesn't represent that much, does it?
Well, it really does not. And, we kind of have a good idea about how many people are clicking in, so my guess is it's option 1. But anyway, for the people who do use Facebook, get out there and check it out.
Right.
And we're the people who bring you FastenersClearinghouse.com. Fortunately, we have lots of likers of that. And this is a sourcing network for the fastener industry, currently serving between 800 and 1,000 companies per business day, if you can believe that. And we're very glad about that. The listing figure is hovering around 850,000 SKUs. Man, you've been a busy man, Brian.
I have, and anyone who has sent in an upload in the last couple of days, just bear with us, okay? There's still a bit of a backlog.
Now, you run the scrubber on this special computer over there at the office, and I have to imagine smoke's coming out of the back.
Yeah, there's and I've also put some changes through. We've added another couple of commodities, so I've got to change the scrubbers and things, the definitions when we do that. But you're right, there's a lot of activity in both things, and uploads, and also just in the statistics of the use of the site. I mean, times that used to be sort of quiet, it defies any logical explanation. We have a lot of activity on the site, and I shouldn't have thought we would.
Yeah, that's very true. Lately, meaning the last several weeks since the last episode, the FCH network has really been cranking along. Holden Lewis once characterized FCH as counter-cyclical. And if you compare what's going on with our network to the latest FDI numbers, which we'll hear coming up on the Fastener News Report, I guess Holden was right. But We'll take it. And folks, if you're ever looking for a hard-to-find part, you're looking for a fill-in or a new vendor for a part, please go to www.fastenersclearinghouse.com. The other side of that coin is we will send business your way if you get your parts listed up there with us. And Brian's Scrubber software is one of the ways that we make that happen. It's effortless, nearly. And we've got some interfaces with some of the big ERP systems out there. So get with us at www.fastenersclearinghouse.com. We'll get you set up. We'd love to have you.
Right. Remember the S after fastener?
That's right. The S is for season's greetings.
Yeah.
And we get around in a lot of other ways too, Brian. I mean, we're at a lot of the association meetings. We attend a lot of the trade shows, and it's always good to meet people in person and get feedback that way as well. You know, we had actually quite a busy year and met quite a lot of new people that way.
Yes, and we met heaps of people who came to see us at the Vegas show, so it's great. A lot of people I hadn't actually seen before but talked to for years. It was great.
Yeah, and you know, speaking of Vegas, I ran into an article out there on Global Fastener News. This was from November 28th. We don't really talk too much about STAFTA. We've never been to the show. I've always threatened to go. Maybe one of these years we'll get involved with that organization. But they had a story out there. The headline was STAFTA's Orlando Convention draws 4,236. And the story says that, by the way, this convention was held November 4th through the 6th down there in Orlando. And they had 4,236 people, which it was just 4 shy of their 2011 numbers.
Huh.
Which is kind of crazy. And then I thought that number sounded kind of familiar, so I went back and I looked at the archives on Global Fastener News and checked out the Vegas numbers, and the number for this year was 4,246. And that number was just 8 short of the 2011 number. So both organizations within 10 and within just a couple of 2011 numbers. Kind of interesting tidbit there, huh?
I'm not sure what I make out of it, Tony. I'm thinking about it, but
it's just trivia to fill up time on the show. I'm always scouring the web for trivia.
And I always try and relate the numbers of things like that to what we see of the FDI, the Fastener Distributor Index, because that should have been, like slightly more positive, even though it's turned down a bit recently, but people have said they've had better years.
Well, now you're getting into Holden Lewis's territory. That's dangerous.
And I'll leave that totally up to Holden, okay? I gave up predicting numbers a while ago.
Getting back to the articles here, STAFTA this year had a total of 788 booths. There were 796 in 2011. And comparing with Vegas, there were 770 this year versus 757 in 2011.
Yeah, I thought it was a bigger show.
We got to get down to STAFTA one of these years, Spray.
Well, there's a lot of people who would be possible FCH members there. I mean, it's slightly different set of people, but they're in the same business.
A lot of them are. There is a lot of overlap, but
yeah,
it kind of bleeds into that industrial supply space, which,
right.
Let's face it, FCH is moving in that direction all the time.
Right. I mean, we've been moving there from the day we started off, actually, when people started sending us things that we had no idea how to classify. They just went under miscellaneous. Now they've come out of miscellaneous.
And those categories are being refined all the time, right?
Yeah. Well, we introduced a whole category of hand tools. We've put in, electronic hardware, now industrial hardware. And, if people think that we have categories that should be on FCH that we haven't addressed properly, then don't hesitate to tell us that you've got some items you want to list and doesn't fit into one of our categories properly. I mean, we'll be, we won't add a new category for one item, but if we can find other people have got items there, we'll create a new category.
You're the master of managed chaos, Bri.
It's very organized. It's not managed chaos, okay?
I suppose that's all your perspective. But I leave you to what you do, and you do it well.
And I stay off the phones in general.
And in the category of shows, moving to a couple of other shows that are upcoming, of course, we've got the All-American Fastener Show happening in Kansas City in May. That's May 8th and 9th. Mm-hmm. And then also Fastener Tech, which is being produced by the Midwest Fastener Association and Fastener Technology. That's happening June 10th through the 12th in Chicago. Those will be other opportunities for us to mix with you out there in the fastener world. And I've made specially sure this year, Bri, that our muskie fishing trip does not clash with Fastener Tech.
Right. I'd noticed that, actually.
Yeah, we're going after Fastener Tech. Last year we missed the show.
Yes, we were getting reports in those very rare parts of the lake where we had cell access. We would get communications from Sue and Lynn about how the show was going, and pictures, actually.
Yeah, that was actually kind of cool, although overall it was really tragic that we scheduled it that way.
Right.
Fishing was pretty good, though.
Yes, it was.
Now, the other attribute of Fastener Tech this year is that the NFDA will be co-locating the first day of their summer conference, in which they're having their ESPS sessions, is happening on Wednesday, June 12th. And so there's one day of overlap with Fastener Tech, and then the NFDA meeting takes place.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a novel idea. It's not a bad idea.
Yes, all part of the, quote, new era of the NFDA. And I had a conversation with the NFDA's president, Mr. Jay Queenin, just recently, and I think it's probably a very good time to play that right now.
Yeah.
Jay Queenin is the president of Specialty Bolt and Screw. He's also the president of the NFDA, and he joins us once again here on Fully Threaded. Jay, thanks for joining us again.
Eric, thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm just so happy that we can talk during the day, because you have a tendency to call me in the middle of the night over the last 6 months. I know you called me once at 3 a.m. when I was in Taiwan, and then last week you called me, I believe it was about midnight when I was in Finland. So I'm not sleeping today, which is always a good thing. It's always a good thing.
Well, I do apologize for that, Jay. You're quite the globetrotter. I never know where I'm going to catch you, and I assure you it's completely inadvertent.
No big deal. But it's great to be back talking to you today about all the great things that are happening at NFDA.
Yeah, glad to catch you stateside. And what I really wanted to pick your brain about is I saw a headline fly across the Twitter sphere recently, and it said, "A new era has begun for the NFDA." Now, I know that at the recent meeting out in Phoenix, Arizona, there was a lot going on, and I suspect this headline has something to do with that. Why don't you fill us in?
Yeah, we're all very excited. I mean, we really did launch a new era in Scottsdale in November, and this has been the work of many people over many months to get us to where we are today. And again, I just want to thank all the members who participated over the last 6 months, and the other associations for their assistance as well. But this effort was started back in April when we retained Vicki Lester as our new executive director. And what we've done is we've worked all summer and into the fall to get us to a point where we have been able to articulate where the NFDA is going. And the PAC West was kind enough to let us co-locate an event in Scottsdale with them. Russ Doran and others, were very gracious to let us piggyback onto some of their activities, as well as participate in some of our visioning events. But what we did in Scottsdale was, I think there were about 30 to 35 members of the NFDA that got together, and what we did was we brought a facilitator in to really drive and work with us on where we're going to take this association. And I think we came up with a pretty good roadmap. We talked about 3 major areas. We talked about our core purpose. And I think that we're all in agreement that, our core purpose is really to help NFDA members thrive in a global marketplace. And as we touched upon earlier, when we were joking around about the travel schedules, I think all companies now are competing at a global level. I mean, we're all doing business outside of the country, as well as in both the sales and the purchasing. And it's just our job to really help our members to thrive in that global marketplace. And then we went into, with the group, what are our core values? And, and really a couple of values came through that we think really sum up what the NFDA is all about. The first one is really, is honesty and integrity. The second core value that we came up with was balancing work and life. The third value was valuing people, relationships, and differences. The fourth one was passionate leadership, which is, I think, a hallmark of what the NFDA is all about. And finally, it's really doing business with a positive attitude and also having some fun in the process. So, I think that, for those of you who've been involved with the NFDA for years, I think this sums it up. For those of you who don't know anything about us, I think that you will, you'll find that that's what we're all about. And then finally, and probably most important, is we sat back and we tried to think of what our large goal was over the next couple of years. And, there's been a big movement within our association to work with other associations and other members of our industry. And the big goal that we talked about was that we really want to unite the North American fastener industry to help our members thrive. And when we talk about that goal, we understand that we serve a segment of the fastener industry, really geared towards executives and owners of companies. You have great work being done by the regional associations around the country to bring the industry together. You also have the great work that's being done with the IFI. But we fundamentally believe at the NFDA, and I think that there are many members that from these other associations, we fundamentally believe that we're better when we work together, and we're going to be a stronger industry if we're all going in the same direction.
Now, I just have to ask the question because I know some people are thinking about it. Does what you just said have any impact on who's going to be allowed to join the NFDA?
So that's a very good question, and and I think we've committed to taking a look at just who should be members of the NFDA. I know that in the past, the NFDA hasn't allowed reps into our association. I think there's a willingness for us to consider bringing them in. I mean, they're a valuable part of our industry. And and I think you'll see some movement from us over the course of the next 6 months to a year to make sure that we include all members of our industry in our association, and not just some. But those discussions that are ongoing at the board now, and hopefully in the next couple of months I can report back to you on where that stands. But again, we recognize that fundamentally the NFDA needs to change, and I think you see a willingness for us to do that.
Fair enough. Now, what does the new era of the NFDA have to do with the scheduling going forward? I know that there was some discussion about projecting farther out. Are you making some strides in that direction as well?
Absolutely. And what we did was we released a 3-year schedule. And I think what you're going to find and what you'll see is that we're going to be doing many events, trying to co-locate many events with other associations, and we're really trying to develop better content and a better program for our members. So if you look out over the course of 2013, there are a couple events that have been scheduled, but let me talk first about some of the highlights, at a high level. Really, what we talked about was that the NFDA will continue to do its traditional business meeting. That's a meeting that traditionally we refer to it as the ESPS, and that's really where the owners of distribution companies get together with their suppliers and conduct a whole lot of business. So we're going to continue with that concept, but that's going to be moved to May or June every year, and I'm going to get into a little more detail about that later. The second thing we decided to do was we're going to continue on with our resort event in 2014, and that'll be sometime in the winter. I think that there's a general feeling that Las Vegas is the place to be in the fall, and we can offer an industry-wide resort event sometime in the winter in a warm weather climate. The two new aspects of the schedule that we've included are a little bit different. The first one is we will continue to do and support our members as they in trade shows around the world. We've taken the NFDA has taken an active role in Stuttgart in past years, and we were in Brazil last year. So wherever our members travel to, we will continue to support them in those foreign locations. But we've also added a different type of event that it's really going to be around member bonding and getting members together, so that there can be a connection. And a lot of the people that have been involved with the association for many, many years say that one of the they've made some of their best friends in the industry through NFDA. So what we're going to start is something called an executive summit, and it's really going to be geared toward different years to different types of activities. So the first executive summit is going to take place in Maui in 2013. I believe it's going to be around November 2nd, and what that will do, it will be allow members to go on a summit with their families. There'll be some great business content that will be generated by our members, but really it's just a way to connect. And I think we're also looking to do in 2000, and that will be 2013. In 2014, we're going to be looking to do kind of a family event down in Disney World. But I think that these types of events will be totally paid for by the members participating, and it won't be a burden to the rest of the organization. But I think there'll be great and fun events for our members to connect with each other, do some business, but also make those personal connections that make business easier.
Makes sense. Now, you mentioned the ESPS sessions a minute ago, and I think that is a huge selling point for NFDA. I mean, I had a chance to witness what was going on at the spring conference in Atlanta, and I mean, that was just nonstop, really high-level business going on in a really concentrated way. You said you were going to add some more details to that. You could share those now. That'd be great.
Sure. So what we've decided to do is consistent with our goal of working closely with other associations in the industry. For 2013, we decided to co-locate our business event around Fastener Tech. Nancy Rich and others on the board were nice enough to we sat down with them in Chicago about 2 months ago. They were nice enough to allow us to co-locate our event with them. So what we're going to be doing is, I believe Fastener Tech will go on for 2 days, and then the NFDA event will follow immediately thereafter. So our event will take place June 12th to the 14th, in Chicago. We're going to have some great content there. It's going to be a lot like our Atlanta event, which I think got some great reviews. But what we envision is that every 2 years, Fastener Tech takes place in Chicago, and the NFDA will co-locate their event with Fastener Tech at least this year and in 2015. And then in the off year that Fastener Tech does not happen, we're going to pick another great urban location for us to get together and do some business. So, I think the final thing that is different about the ESPS event as we go forward is that all of our events are going to be planned and mapped out by members. No one knows our members better than ourselves. So currently, we're putting the call out to people if they want to participate in planning of Chicago. We highly encourage you to get in touch with Vicki Lester and let her know that you're interested, and hopefully we can get some great content and we can get some fun stuff happening out in Chicago for our members.
Well, that all sounds good. It all sounds positive. We're supporting Fastener Tech 13, of course, the Donald J. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois. That's happening June 10th through the 12th officially, although the show floor is open on the 11th and the 12th. And it'll be great to see all the NFDA people out there. It's going to be a very welcome addition.
Yeah, no, it'll be great, and I think that we will also be having a meeting of the Fastener Coordinating Council, and just so you know, back in Las Vegas in I believe it was October, we have an organization that is comprised of the NFDA as well as all the regional associations that get together once a year, and we'll also be meeting as a group, around Fastener Tech. And I think this is the first time that all the associations are coming together around that event. So we made some great progress in Las Vegas around coordinating, and we're going to continue that around Fastener Tech in Chicago in June. But one of the things that came out of Las Vegas, the coordinating council, was the desire on the part of the regionals for the NFDA to give some great content to business for the regional associations. So I just want to, if I can, just plug, one of the we're doing a webinar. The webinar will be, this Friday, December 14th at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and the webinar is being sponsored by the NFDA, but is open to both NFDA members and all the members of the regional associations around the country. And the webinar will be around a distribution outlook for 2013. And this is a webinar that was prepared by NAW, and we think it'll be very informative about the trends in our marketplace, and we encourage all of you to participate. I think that if you need the details around this event, feel free to call Vicki Lester or go on to the NFDA website, and you can find the details. But I just wanted to say that this is kind of the first activity or webinar that the NFDA has initiated to share with all the regional associations is coming up this Friday.
And we hope that's the first of many. Now, we did plug that webinar on the last episode of Fully Threaded Radio. In reality, most folks that are listening to this podcast are probably going to listen to it after the webinar takes place, but it is very worth pointing out that this is something that is the first of what we hope to be a trend, and I think this is something that is really going to bring value to the industry, if so.
Excellent.
Well, now, Jay, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all of this. One of the themes of today's episode of Fully Threaded, of course, is unrelated to any of that, and it has to do with this whole fiscal cliff area. And I'm just going to have to put the question to you before we let you run, and that is, if you had to put your money down, do you see an outcome of this whole thing one way or the other?
Absolutely, and we all hope that cooler minds will prevail, and everyone will act like an adult. But I think that as it gets closer, I mean, they just have to cut the deal and move on. And I think that business is looking for certainty, and hopefully we can have some certainty by the end of this month. But I'm an American. I'm very optimistic. So as I said to you before, when I was in Europe, there seemed to be a trend about looking at the negatives. The best thing about America is that we always look at the positives, and we're always an optimistic people. And 2013, I think, will be a better year than 2012. But I think some difficult decisions need to be made, and hopefully they can be made before we go off that cliff.
Well, I like the sound of that, and with that kind of a tenor, it speaks to your leadership of the NFDA right now, and my hat's off to you with that. And Jay Queenin, you're the president of the NFDA. Sure do appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, and I look forward to coming back again. And again, thank you for all the work you've done with the industry. And it's going to be a great 2013. Have a great holiday season.
Thanks again, Jay. We'll be right back with more Fully Threaded Radio.
Once you're in this industry, you're not getting out. Good thing there's Fully Threaded Radio. Talk radio for the fastener industry.
FastenersClearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the sourcing network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
Our hearts are in fasteners, so join us in the heart of the fastener industry for Fastener Tech 13. This is Nancy Rich, Fastener Tech Show Manager, inviting you to join us June 10th through 12th for an event hosted by Midwest Fastener Association and Fastener Technology International, and sponsored by Fastener Industry Groups. This is an event produced by the fastener industry for the fastener industry. Its success returns to the industry through scholarships, education, and various other programs. Fastener Tech allows many fastener and fastener-related companies a great opportunity to meet with their industry and source many products in one location. The trade show will feature fastener manufacturers, heat treaters, platers, and other fastener service companies. Fastener Tech will also feature educational and industry informational seminars. You'll also have the chance to enjoy several social events. Your time at Fastener Tech will include great networking opportunities. Fastener Tech 13 will be held at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois. Be part of an event bringing American industry together. More details of this event may be found at www.fastenertech.com or at www.mwfa.net.
When top quality and outstanding service are at the top of your list in fastener suppliers, turn to Stellfast. Since 1976, Stellfast has grown to become an industry-leading importer and manufacturer of the highest quality industrial fasteners, specialty items, and automotive parts. Our array of facilities across North America and in Asia, along with full quality control labs and ISO 9001-2008 certifications, ensure the highest quality parts, and at Stellfast, they're delivered with undisputed service excellence. We're family-run and dedicated to your success. Our customers have come to depend on the expertise of our staff and the quality of our products. We also offer a wide range of secondary services to meet some of the toughest requirements you might have. Contact Stellfast today through our website at www.stellfast.com and put us to work for you. Stellfast. Service you deserve, people you trust.
Hi, this is Dennis Clark with Beacon Fasteners and Components, wishing you and yours a Merry Christmas and a safe and Happy New Year. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric, back with you, feeling ever so jolly.
You meant to have like elvish sound voices, twittering and giggling. Okay,
we have that coming up later in the show, Brian.
Oh, okay, right. I wondered when they were going to turn up.
Yeah, they'll be here. Well, they're all happy. You know, the elves are a lot like the longshoremen. And of course, the longshoreman strike is over. I think a few people were paying attention to that. It wound up only lasting a week, Bri.
Yeah, it's pretty short for a strike like that, for a crucial service for the industry.
Yep. Well, we saw the Fidelis Fastener Twitter account announce that about late November, and it only lasted a week. There was a story that came out on December 4th saying that the strike had been resolved. I found something kind of wild out there on longshoreshippingnews.com. The logistical workers who work at the ports are earning about $41 per hour.
Wow. Maybe we need to change our jobs. Then you wouldn't have fun. You'd have to have a longshoreman talk radio. It doesn't sort of go right, does it?
Yeah, we have to give that some thought. Not sure exactly what kind of features we'd have. We could maybe do like fist fighting tips.
And, little recaps of Stalinist philosophy. It would work too.
Oh, God. Come on, Brad. We're going to try and keep this one a little nonpartisan today. It's Christmas time.
Oh, the philosophy of the two organizations is very similar, okay? You could say one came out of the other.
You're just digging in, Brian, aren't you? You're just digging in.
Well, they have Christmas in Moscow. It's just rather glum. So, yeah. But anyway, we'll say we're glad that the strike's over because it's very important for this industry that we not have strikes, okay?
Very true. I remember reading in the history of the Porteous Fastener Company book about some of the strikes that happened, I think, in the 70s. And, man, during those strikes, there was some real hardship brought onto the fastener industry. And, whenever you hear about strikes on the horizon, I think people kind of harken back to those days. And fortunately, there was nothing like that at foot this time.
Right.
That's a great book, by the way, that History of Porteous. I think I left it over at your house. I think you have it.
Yes, you did. Now, I haven't finished it, I have to say that, but I found it really, really interesting. There's lots of the old times in it that are great.
Yeah, well worth a read. And before we get to the Fastener News Report, we've got a little bit of association news for you folks. The Midwest Fastener Association has announced their officers for the 2013 year, and they are, in the role of president, once again, it's Mr. Matt DeLauder of SWD.
Good.
The vice president, the one and only, from Metric and Multistandard, Rich Cavoto.
Good.
Pipeline to the stars for the fastener world. In the secretary position is Glenn Bryn of Innovative Components, and the treasurer this year is Bob O'Brien of Certified Products.
I'm glad they're all in there.
Yeah, all good people.
Yeah.
We also had the announcement of officers for the North Coast Fastener Association, and they are, this one we had kind of a sneak preview of a couple of episodes ago, if you'll remember. Mr. Marty Nolan of RL English Company is the president.
Okay.
Kelly Quinton of Brighton Best is the vice president. Now, Kelly previously was known as Kelly Hummel, and she was last year's president, so now she's the vice president. Ken Graham of National Threaded Fasteners is the treasurer, and Dave Audia of Advanced Components is the secretary.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So there's your lineup for 2013.
A couple of those I haven't talked to, but I'm sure we will at some stage.
So what are you saying? Therefore, you have to withhold your endorsements?
No. I have to go over to one of their shows.
Well, it's very fair-minded of you that you don't just mechanically say they're all good people if you haven't met them, Brian. I'm very impressed. And let's once again thank our sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio. The title sponsors again are Stelfast and Beacon Fasteners and Components. And the Fastener News Report is brought to us today by Volt Industrial Plastics and Fastener Technology International Magazine. Also like to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for listening to Fully Threaded Radio. We depend on you. We couldn't do it without you.
That's right.
And without further ado, here's Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Eric and Brian, and greetings to all the Fully Threaded Radio listeners out there. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored today by Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. 1 month after the resounding re-election of our campaigner-in-chief, President Barack Obama, most eyes and ears are focused on the approaching fiscal cliff that was created 1 year ago by the same elected masterminds that are now acting desperate to keep us from going over it in 2013. I know that it would be hard to make this stuff up, but this is the way of politics in America today. Gimmicks, style, and marketing over truth, humility, and responsibility, all which are leading to a decade of unprecedented government growth. Fortunately for me, I am working in the private sector, and cliff or no cliff, I am staying focused on the fastener industry. Here's today's Fastener News Report. In our top story, we're going to get the results of the Fastener Distributor Index for November. In addition, we have some newsmaker headlines from Automated Packaging Systems, SWD, Fastener Tech 13, the NFDA, Fastener Fair Brazil, Falcon Metal, and OmniLite. We also have a back page report on my annual gut level predictions. We will get to all of that in the Fastener Distributor Index results for November right after this.
Volt Industrial Plastics is the source for all your high-quality plastic fastener needs, and customer service is their #1 priority. With almost 1 million fasteners in stock and same-day shipping on stock items, Volt Industrial Plastics carries inventory so you don't have to. Volt manufactures everything in-house from over 125 different materials, and they're proud to say 100% of their products are American-made. And of course, custom tooling and in-house bagging is available. Contact Volt online at www.voltplastics.com. Volt Industrial Plastics. makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners.
For a selection of hundreds of thousands of fasteners, check out your local Fastenal store or Fastenal.com. We can stock domestic or internationally sourced product locally and keep your bin stock filled for you at no additional expense. We are a 9001-2008 certified company that's made a huge investment in quality control so you don't have to. And if you can't find it on our shelf, we can make it for you at the quantity you need at one of our many manufacturing facilities. Learn more by contacting your local Fastenal store or visiting Fastenal.com today.
Hey, Fastener people. Let's meet in the middle in Kansas City, Missouri for the All-American Fastener Show, May 8th to the 9th, 2013. This is Heidi Voltrauer, and I'm so excited to have the show in Kansas City at the Intercontinental Hotel on the Plaza. And getting there is easy. Once you catch a direct flight into Kansas City, or make the drive, you can park your car and enjoy the hotel and plaza with all of its amazing shops and restaurants right across from the hotel. We will have the golf tournament, booth setup, and of course our famous Fastener Bash on May 8th. And the show will be on the 9th starting at 9 a.m. We've also added a lunch seminar the day of the show. For all your information about the All-American Fastener Show, look at our website at allamericanfastenershow.com. Hope to see all of you in May at the All-American Fastener Show in Kansas City.
You're listening to Mike McNulty's Fastener News Report on Fully Threaded Radio.
In November, the Fastener Distributor Index, also known as FDI, dropped to its second lowest level ever, 46.1, which is just 1.5% below the October FDI reading of 46.8. FDI data is collected and analyzed by BB&T Capital Markets and the FCH Sourcing Network, and it seeks to identify demand, pricing, and outlook trends within the American fastener industry. To get the full story on November FDI results and the current pulse of the fastener distribution in the USA, we talked to Holden Lewis of BB&T Capital Markets. Hi, Holden. Thanks for joining us on the Fastener News Report.
Hi, thank you for having me again. And actually, before we started, I feel I should begin with a brief confessional, which is that in the materials that our listeners should have received, they will see the November index, which, as you mentioned, was in fact at 46.1. But then you mentioned, Mike, that it was down about 1.5 from the October number. Please be aware that in the table, we actually had a glitch in our spreadsheet that is, in fact, showing that type of decrease, but really it was a 0.7 decrease from October to November. So, in the table to the right of the table where it shows the October-November change, please, listeners, be aware that there was a math glitch in the spreadsheet. Take a look at the November number; it's absolutely the right number. Compare it to the actual October number to sort of do that math.
Okay, well, that's good to clear that up. Now, we've had 3 months in a row of dropping FDI results. Is it time to sound the alarms and go to battle stations?
Yeah, that's never a good thing. But I think that it's probably a little bit early to sound the alarms and go to battle stations at this point. What I really thought was interesting about the November reading is, as you pointed out, a 46.1 reading, second lowest reading since we've done the index beginning at the start of this year. But and I'll get into this in greater detail in a moment. But even though there was more pessimism around November, the outlook actually did not get weaker. And if you recall, I think last month we talked about this. As I go through and talk to my companies and go through earnings reports, etc., what the tone that I've picked up is that Q4 is going to be a tough quarter, and it's going to be a tough quarter because people are talking about seeing destocking out there. People are talking about anticipating longer plant shutdowns around Thanksgiving and particularly the Christmas and New Year's holidays. And so, we have kind of been anticipating that Q4 would be largely a write-off as it relates to demand in the industrial space. And so when I see a November number of 46.1, frankly, that reads to me like it's kind of coming to pass. So that's obviously not good, but it really does feed my concern that Q4 is going to be a very difficult period for industrial companies. However, slipping over to the outlook, again, the outlook statement or the outlooks of respondents, if anything, were a little bit better than we saw last month. So a relatively negative current environment is not weighing on people's 6-month outlook like it was 3 or 4 months ago. And I think what we're seeing here is people are kind of looking past this quarter into next year and kind of saying, yeah, I get that we're having some of these transitory issues as it relates to inventory and shutdowns, but once we get through those, we would expect a more stable sort of environment. And so, we haven't expected much out of Q4. That's kind of what the numbers are telling us. But the outlook statement, I think, should be taken as a bit of a positive, not on the current environment, but at least going into next year, people are not looking at continued erosion, or at least anticipating continued erosion in the environment that they're facing.
And that outlook that you're talking about, that's the long-term 6-month outlook.
That is the long-term. Yeah, to the extent the 6 months represents long-term, in my industry it certainly does. But yeah, that's the 6-month outlook statements that respondents comment on my on the survey. And that's actually higher in November than it was in October. Slightly. The number of people that see the 6 months activity levels being higher 6 months from now actually increased over what it was last month. Now, the interesting thing is, if the election did anything, I know we kind of talked about the election last month, but if the election did anything, it caused people to sort of get off the fence. Because what we saw the number of people who were basically saying it was going to be the same really came down a lot, from probably about 50% of the respondents to about 25% of the respondents. And we saw them both go into the positive camp as well as the negative camp. It's just that, a few more went into positive than negative. But, if the election had any effect, it was to cause people to take a position that they had not taken in the prior month. But net, it didn't seem to weigh on the overall sentiment. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some people feeling pretty negative. We had one comment in our survey from someone who indicated that they've spoken to a few customers who, they anticipate shutting down their business over the next 9 months. I'll be interested in hearing 9 months from now if that actually happened. But, there's definitely some folks that didn't like the result. But when I look at this number in the wake of the election, I'm seeing people that by and large did not get more pessimistic, and didn't seem to suggest that there was going to be any sort of major change to the way they were conducting their business. All right. Now, I know in the survey that you inquire on different things like sales, employment, deliveries, inventory, and pricing. Which of these, if any, took the biggest hit, or were they all kind of even hit? Well, no, it definitely wasn't even hit. Actually, I would say of the 4 components that go into the FDI, only one of them really stood out relative to the prior months, and that was the sales component. The sales component was undoubtedly weak. In fact, looking at that component, it fell from about 48.6 in October to about 34.4 in November. So, again, it kind of feeds my thought that current conditions are difficult as we're working through destocking, as we're working through long plant shutdowns. And you would expect that as those things work through the system, it's going to have an impact on current business levels, and that is kind of what I'm seeing in this survey. So everything that we look at in terms of the overall number, in terms of the components, clearly telling us that it's not a fantastic Q4 for the folks that are out there right now. All right, so these results were collected after the election, but in the midst of all this discussion on the so-called fiscal cliff. Do you think that had any impact on the responses? To the extent that it continues to color people's views, no doubt, it's always something, right? First it was the election, next the fiscal cliff. Not that these are not significant events that we need to address in some way, shape, or form. But I have no reason to think that it necessarily impacted this survey specifically. One thing that might be interesting, and unfortunately in this survey I don't really have a good way of figuring this out, but to what extent did the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy have an impact on those folks that were sort of in that neck of the woods. And again, don't have a good way of judging that by the survey, but certainly, in future sort of surveys, wouldn't mind hearing from folks in the commentary section about the extent to which Hurricane Sandy might have played an impact on this. But I think Hurricane Sandy may have been a more meaningful question mark than sort of skipping from the presidential election to the fiscal cliff. Like I said, in the wake of the presidential election, we saw a lot of people who had been sort of saying things were going to be the same take a position, either better or worse, on the 6 months. It seems like that really moved. The election itself seems to have moved a lot of people. We'll see if fiscal cliff resolution moves more.
Okay. Now the supplemental question in this month's survey was on LIFO, on the inventory question. Do you have some comments on that?
It certainly can. And the reason that we asked the question was simply because one of the things that we've been hearing in this fiscal cliff conversation is that perhaps the elimination of LIFO is on the table as a means of generating revenue for the federal government, and obviously the mechanism work that anybody who reports that means of inventory would have a reserve on their balance sheet, which would immediately move to the P&L, and that would create a taxable event that certainly smaller distributors may not want to carry that burden. And so, frankly, I have been of the mind that the risk of that occurring could prompt more distributors to consider exiting the business. And frankly, as I watch my distributors and sort of the activity levels in general, I've been somewhat surprised there hasn't been more efforts to sell their businesses. And when we went through it, I guess we got a good feeling for why that is, because if you look at the respondents, quite frankly, almost 70% of respondents use FIFO, not LIFO, so it wouldn't have any real impact. And then another 16% of respondents said that it would be a hassle, but it wouldn't necessarily change their approach to the business. So I guess the joke's on me. There just aren't enough people that think it would be a big enough deal to cause a lot of people to want to leave the business.
Well, I guess it's good. We don't want to see people leaving.
Perhaps I should use consolidation.
Right.
Not a terrible exit strategy to find somebody bigger than you that wants to bring your assets and value add into their own personal equation. But we just haven't seen much of that.
Especially if the price is right.
That's right. Only if the price is right.
Right. Good. Well, I also want to bring up that this is, as we wrap up here, that this result and discussion here completes the first year of the FDI. So it started last January, and this is the 12th one. Finish out the year.
Yep, we will. We will still have the December result to bank, but obviously we'll take that at the very end of the month and the beginning of January. And again, I think that we've been we will certainly always welcome a higher degree of respondents. We're still working to get that, but the respondents that we have, I think, have been a steady number, a relevant number, and I think that we've been able to look into this data and get a pretty good sense of what has been going on. I think that it's somewhat faithfully captured the strength early on, sort of the lull that played out as the year progressed, and now we'll see if it's projecting a better next year accurately than what you're seeing in the second half. And that's what I would take from this from a demand side, is that it's kind of pointing to the first half of 2013 being better than the second half of 2012. It doesn't speak to the order of magnitude of improvement, but it does say that that should be somewhat better. And what's interesting is there are some other indicators out there that are pointing to that. The national ISM, which did dip below 50 this month, spent a couple of months back above 50. There's talk about Chinese stimulus really starting to ripple through and work through. So, I do feel like the survey has been reasonably faithful in telling us kind of what the environment looks like, and I'm looking forward to another year. The one thing that I will point out that we didn't really touch on, but I think is relevant, is if there was a particular negative that I think that we need to watch for as we go into these surveys in 2013, it was really the pricing bit. Pricing has very consistently sort of eased up as the year has gone on through these surveys. And, this November survey, I would say, would be the first survey that I've seen so far where pricing kind of looks flattish, plus or minus overall. And we didn't start off the year that way, but it seems like we're finishing the year that way. It's not a big surprise, but at this point, we want to see it sort of flatten out at this level rather than continue to slide. And that I think is a bit of the drama going into the December and first quarter readings for next year.
Very good. I think that this has been a value to the listeners and a valuable addition to the radio program. So just want to congratulate you on doing this, and that we look forward to continuing it in the next year.
I appreciate your role as well as the role of the Fully Threaded Radio, and I look forward to carrying it forward.
Okay. Well, Holden, thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk to you in 2013.
Thank you. You too.
That was Holden Lewis of BB&T Capital Markets. Holden has a regular column on the FDI that appears in the print and digital editions of Fastener Technology International magazine. The December issue is online now, available to be viewed at fastenertech.com. Next up, today's top Fastener Newsmaker headlines. Automated Packaging Systems, located in Streetsboro, Ohio, is celebrating its 50th year in business and the induction of its founders, Hershey Lerner and Bernie Lerner, into the 2012 Packaging Machinery Manufacturers Institute Packaging Hall of Fame. SWD Incorporated in Addison, Illinois, held a groundbreaking ceremony last summer to commemorate the first phase of its expansion plan by adding 67,000 square feet to its existing 105,000 square feet. SWD is a metal finishing and fastener sorting company, and the $7.5 million expansion will allow SWD to add new coating equipment and up to 25 new jobs. Fastener Tech 13, the all-fastener industry event scheduled for next June in Rosemont, Illinois, is once again co-locating with Surfin 2003 trade show for surface finishing technology. In addition, the National Fastener Distributors Association, NFDA, has scheduled some educational and business meetings in conjunction with the Fastener Tech 13 exhibition, seminars, and networking events. The second Fastener Fair Brazil was held last month in Sao Paulo, Brazil, to meet growing demand for fasteners and fixings in Brazil. The event is part of the Fastener Fair series of trades fairs for fasteners and fixing industries in Europe, India, Thailand, and Russia. Ruth Dowling Kaufman was at the show on behalf of Ningbo Jingding Fasteners in China, and she joins us now for her first-hand report on the show. Hi, Ruth. Thanks for joining us on the Fastener News Report.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
How was the show in Sao Paulo, Brazil?
Well, I thought it was great. I was really impressed from the first moment I walked in. It was larger than I expected, about 150 booths. Considering the market, I guess I thought that was a pretty good display there.
Yeah, and this was the second show, so about 150 booths. I read that last year they had about 2,500 attendees. Would you guess that was about the same this time?
Yeah, it's probably along those lines. The show lasted for 2 days. It was the day before and the day of our Thanksgiving holiday. It kind of flowed similarly to our Vegas show. So
Okay.
The first day was pretty, you're on your toes, and then day two, some of the vendors start milling around, and you get a chance to meet some of the people that you're working next to. And I like the way they do it down there. They've got wine at almost every booth. So on day two, my neighbors were hooking me up, and we're making friends and had a good time.
Yeah, so you mentioned Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, you have Old Rusty Bolt beer, but was there any fastener-themed wine in Brazil?
Not that I know of. So I would say that's an open opportunity for somebody who wants to go down there and take charge of that.
Now, comparing it to Las Vegas, it is a similar style where people are kind of a meet and greet, or they come in and sit down and spend more time in your booth at this show than they would in Las Vegas?
I'd say there's a little bit of both. There are people that are coming to your booth that have never met you before or have never heard of your company before, so they may, swing in, take a look at your wares, and ask a few questions. trying to communicate through the language barrier, Portuguese and English. Sometimes those conversations are very short. But then there are other companies who are, very sincere or know who you are. You've got a relationship already, so they want to come in and sit down and chat about life a little bit. And they're pretty laid back folks down there. So a lot of relationship type interaction, I would say.
Was this your first time in Brazil?
It was. I really didn't know what to expect. I have traveled to Asia quite a bit, so I could say that going to Brazil, now that I've done it once, if you've traveled in Asia, Brazil is much easier. You'll have it's really no problem for an American to go down there by him or herself and see what's going on down there.
So based on what you saw on the show, would you go back? Will you be going back to the next one?
I definitely will go back, and I'm not sure that I would wait for the next show even to go back down there. They seem to be very relationship driven. The folks down there, they would prefer to do business with a local, but if that's not possible, the next best thing is being visible to them and being available to them. So at my next opportunity, I do intend to go back. There's, Sao Paulo is, I would say, the center of the fastener universe down there. It's similar to the way Chicago would be for the United States. It's kind of a central hub, so to speak. So there's lots going on down there, a lot of construction, a lot of oil and gas type business happening down there. So it's a happening place, and it's not that far away really. It's a direct flight out of Chicago. So hop, skip, and a jump, and you're there.
Good. Now I know you have a blog where you write about your fastener business, as well as you've put something up there on the show. So can you give us the address if listeners want to go there and check it out?
You can check that out at www.jinding.us. And right now, like Mike said, there's a quick blurb up there about my experiences in Brazil. And I'd be happy to take any phone calls or questions that anybody might have about my trip and some of the things I learned about the market while I was down there.
Very good. It sounds like it's something worth checking out. I'm planning on going to Brazil in the fall next year, and you've alleviated some of my fears. So
yeah. You'll definitely enjoy it. It's a beautiful place. People are very, very friendly. Very friendly towards Americans, and it's a great place to visit if not do business there.
Very good. Well, thanks for joining us, Ruth.
Thanks for having me.
Falcon Metal Corporation's Louisville, Kentucky location just completed a move to a larger facility to better serve the needs of its expanding customer base. Falcon provides fasteners and other Class C production components to original equipment manufacturers. And our top newsmaker headline is that Michael Walker, Vice President of Research and Development at Omnilight in Cerritos, California, is the 2012 winner of the FTI Technical Achievement Award. This award is given out annually to individuals responsible for major technical developments related to making, distributing, or using fasteners. During Walker's 20-year tenure, Omnilight has grown from a startup to having more than 45 employees today, and it has grossed $60 to $65 million in revenue while producing 60 million parts. Walker has been awarded several U.S. patents for aircraft and automotive fasteners, as well as for sports and recreation components. Details on his work can be found in the December issue of Fastener Technology International, which can be read online at fastenertech.com. Finally, let's turn to the back page for my report on my 2012 and 2013 predictions. Last year at this time, I made 10 gut-level predictions for 2012, and I was right on, or pretty close to being right on 90% of them. To summarize, we saw improvements in automotive and aerospace fastener segments, reshoring of manufacturing operations continued in the United States, and the hype on renewable energy products leveled off, while traditional energy production experienced nice growth. Many fastener makers in China went out of business or were consolidated, but the active ones seemed to ramp up their activities in the USA. Fastener industry mergers and acquisitions in the USA were active, but not as high as I expected. Incandescent light bulbs survived another year. The occupiers movement got really cold, and the Ohio State Buckeyes basketball team made it to the Final Four. My most glaring and painful mistake was predicting that President Obama would lose the election in a landslide. For the November election, I expected a quiet revolution in favor of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness achieved through limited government, private enterprise growth, and personal accountability. But it did not materialize anywhere outside of my head. I now realize that the election results reflect the current culture, which today is one of entitlement, strawmen, celebrity worship, and the constant pursuit of immediate pleasure. This is a culture that thinks it is right to spend more money than you have, that it is reasonable to promise or demand things that can't be delivered, that it is natural to blame others for your problems, and that it is okay to ignore the U.S. Constitution and natural laws. I also learned that of the two major political parties that we have, one is dangerous and the other is stupid. In general, both want to grow the government, and neither is conservative or focused on serving the people or governing the USA as the constitutional republic that it is. Now, for 2013, here are 10 more gut-level predictions. Number 1, higher taxes and higher debt ceilings. Number 2, more government spending, borrowing, and money printing. Number 3, more government regulations. Number 4, the fastener industry will start out sluggish in the beginning of the year, but it will increase slightly throughout the year to surpass the 2012 results. Number 5, we will see continued strength in USA fossil fuel production and in the USA manufacturing sector. Number 6, real conservative voices will emerge on the political scene, not just on the radio, voices similar to Reagan, Friedman, and Buckley. Number 7, in addition to Detroit, more USA cities will seek government bailouts. Number 8, China, Taiwan, Europe, and India will stay strong as USA fastener suppliers. Number 9, 0 Northeast Ohio pro sports teams will make the playoffs. And number 10, the Obamacare death spiral will begin this year. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International bringing you the Fastener News Report. Remember to send your news, pictures, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com.
What's coming up next? Well, that's not a cliffhanger. It's the always informative and outspoken Mr. Charlie Kerr on Fully Threaded.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2012 Beacon Fasteners have arrived to redefine the notion of superior engineering. See one and behold the ultimate synthesis of form and function, style and substance. Hear one as the head turns with inexorable force. Touch one and feel the fire-forged steel standing in stark contrast to the sleek and graceful lines of the body. But to drive one, to drive a 2012 Beacon Fastener is to experience a harmony of power and performance that surpasses all expectations. At any speed, at any torque, each 2012 Beacon Fastener model offers a level of handling unparalleled in its class, a feat made possible by the knowledge acquired through rigorous and systematic test driving, conducted at our own industry-renowned proving grounds, nestled in the heartland of America. And with the 2012 model year, we proudly introduce the newest high-performance addition to our lineup, the Machine Screw Series. Call toll-free at 800-669-2658 for your own private consultation with a Beacon representative and learn a whole new definition of performance. The 2012 Beacon Fasteners have arrived. Drive one today.
Looking for package fasteners of all kinds? How about specials or unique parts that no one seems to carry? At Trinity Hardware Headquarters, we believe in parts done right, and our new catalogue is available online at trinityhardwarehq.com, featuring over 30,000 different types of fasteners available in package quantities, product kits, and assortments, including hundreds of hard-to-find parts as well as the most popular inch and metric sizes. Trinity Hardware Headquarters has locations throughout the Midwest and South, and over 400,000 square feet of warehouse space with 18 million pounds of fasteners ready to fill your requirements. Our featured products include number 3 and number 7 head plough bolts, grade 5 and grade 8 carriage bolts, hook bolts, tap bolts, and nuts and washers of all kinds, plus much more. Visit our website at www.trinityhardwarehq.com or give Trinity Hardware Headquarters a call at 888-232-1010. Trinity Hardware Headquarters, for parts done right.
Trinity, Steadfast and Beacon, fa la 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 la. Companies for who we're speaking, fa la 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 la. Wishing you a happy season, fa la 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 la. Have a beer now, there's a reason, fa la 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 la. See the rusty bolt before us, fa la 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 la. Tap the keg and quickly pour us, fa la 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 la. Frosty cold for fully threaded, fa la 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 la. Fiscal cliff is where we're headed, fa la 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 la.
Hello, radio listeners. This is John Zender, retired executive from Ernest's Machine Products in Cleveland, Ohio, and we're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Well, we've been talking about cliffs, cliff diving, cliff hangers, all things cliffs lately here on Fully Threaded Radio, and we've got a guy with us now who can probably speak very well to what the cliff may or may not mean to the fastener industry, and he's Charlie Kerr of Kerr Lakeside. Welcome back to Fully Threaded, Charlie.
Oh, thanks for having me back. I enjoyed the first opportunity you gave me to do this, and hopefully I'll do a nice enough job for you today, and I might get to come back for a third time.
There's no doubt. That was episode 47, if you can believe it, all the way back in June. And we sure did want to have you back because you said a lot of really interesting things, and you're a guy who puts it on the line. Charlie, just for the listening audience who doesn't know you, you're the president of Kerr Lakeside. You operate out of Euclid, Ohio. You've been in business since 1948. And why don't you let us know a little bit more about what Kerr Lakeside's all about?
Well, probably your listening audience, we're best known for our line of standard hex socket screws, which we make and keep in stock and sell out of a catalog. We do run specials, make the print parts. But I would hazard to guess most of your listeners who are familiar with our company know us because of our hex socket screw line. It is a big chunk of our business. Our fiscal year ended October 31st, and in spite of the fact that the economy is not doing really well, guess who set an all-time record for that particular line of product sales?
Is that right?
We eclipsed our high water mark. It wasn't like we smashed it and doubled up or anything like that, but we enjoyed a very good year. We're off to a pretty good start now. We're seeing a little bit of softening in our order book, but that's not unusual for this time of the year. November and December, first of all, even though it's only 2 days, you got a short month at Thanksgiving. And Christmas, for all practical purposes, we're looking at 4 days off there. So these 2 months are never going to be, as strong a month, say, as, May, June, or August would be. The real indicator is what things are going to look like when we come back in January and February. If we see a continued softening, that could be an indication of a downward trend in business activity. I'm hoping that it's not. The orders are still coming in, so it's just that, I'm prepared for a slight decrease in sales. I'm not anticipating a huge drop like we had back in 2008 and 2009.
Thank God for that.
Well, if, Eric had opened the show with a comment about the fiscal cliff, I watch a lot of talking head TV shows with different economists, and I read a lot of things from different people. Everybody's got a little bit of a, different spin on what this is going to entail. The actual practical, okay, we're going to have spending cuts and sequestration, we're going to have tax hikes. I don't think anybody really knows. But psychologically, I think people are not doing things investment-wise to shield themselves from the risk if this truly becomes a calamity that some people fear that it could.
Well, I think that's precisely why the whole cliff metaphor, and I think and we're going to talk a little bit more about this as we go on, but I mean, I think this is precisely why we have just this ongoing uncertainty. First we had it with the election, now we have it with this cliff, and it's capturing everybody's attention. Thanks for opening up with that dissertation on what you're seeing out there currently. I was talking to you before we started recording about the Fastener Distributor Index, and of course we're trying to take a snapshot of what we just saw. Let me ask you, before we do go forward with the fiscal cliff conversation, does the FDI seem to map to what you've been seeing?
I don't see anything that I would call an inconsistency. One thing that I will throw out, I believe we set the record we set, not so much because of the strength of the economy, but we've had in the last couple of years a number of decent-sized distributors start carrying our product where before they might have not as embraced Kerr Lakeside with the enthusiasm that we're enjoying today.
So your customers are extremely enthusiastic.
Oh no, let me rephrase it a different way. There are some people today that we do a big chunk of business with that we didn't do anything with 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, right. I mean, that's an interesting comment.
The customers that that we've had in the fold for a real long time, our sales to them are pretty much what you would expect them to be, considering how the economy is. There's, our top 10 customers, there's no, statistical irregularities in there, but there's, I'll say about 9 to 10 people that, collectively account for several $100,000 worth of business that we did not sell anything to a couple of years ago. And we've been effective at providing good service. We got a quality product. We offer technical assistance in the event an end user, a customer of a distributor of ours would need some, installation support or, training session. And it's taken a while, but people have gotten comfortable with the fact that even though we're a small company, we only have 75 employees, we only have one location, we do put something else besides just parts in the box when we take an order and make a shipment to a customer. And it's working well for us. Obviously, if the economy goes in the tank and no one's buying anything, that's going to matter.
Yeah.
But that's our marketing efforts have worked for us.
Well, those are great comments, and I have to say that here at Fasteners Clearinghouse, we talk to a lot of companies on a weekly basis, and I have to say it's pretty consistent that the companies who are experiencing growth, and they're out there, one of the consistent comments that they make is that the business they have this year is through growth and new business, and a lot of the key accounts that they had have dropped away, so they're replacing it with new business, but it does seem to be happening, and it's happening across the board. It's really interesting to hear.
Well, like I said a minute ago, our top 10 customers that have been with us, say, for 10 years or longer, they're about where they are year in and year out. Obviously things fluctuate as the economy goes. It's not like 1 or 2 customers doubled up on what they're buying from us. We've got more customers, and which, is kind of nice because we've had, everybody's got a little different philosophy. Like, most people, we have 1 or 2 really large customers, and I love the fact that they buy a lot of product from us. But I would rather be in a situation where I've got 500 people that buy all about the same amount from us and 3 people that account for 95% of our business.
Right. You're exposed.
We do have a very large number of distributors that we do less than $20,000 a year with. And obviously, that's not a big account, but it's a nice account. And we've got, a couple people we do several $100,000 with. Well, if one of the guys you're doing, $500,000 a year with, or even more than that, has a management change and they decide to go a completely different route and you're out the door, that makes a huge hole to fill.
Mm-hmm.
and it's been a long time, but it's happened before. And, I'd like to think that we're doing a good enough job, and it's not that we never did a good job, but we have, it's our sales pitch, I guess you could say. We claim we can ship 97% of our catalog out the door the day it's ordered. Earlier in the year, we got real busy, and that probably fell to 94 or 95. It's back up to about 97. I personally track this on a daily basis because you make a claim like that, you have to be able to back it up. And when you have, people know they can place an order and just expect the stuff is going to come. Now, I'm not going to tell you we never back order anything because I'd be telling you a lie. But if they know that they give you, say, 20 line item order, it's not out of the question. All 20 line items are going to ship the day it's ordered or the day after if the order is placed later in the afternoon. So that's how we differentiate ourselves. And I believe as long as we're able to keep doing that, we should be able to hold the market share that we have and expand on it like we have been doing.
Right. Well, you're staking your reputation on that, and you're doing a good job of it. Now, getting back for a moment to the FDI results, were you surprised by the supplemental question regarding LIFO? Our analyst was expecting a little bit more consternation with the specter of the changes in the LIFO reporting, and what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not a financial person. Like I told you, we've been on LIFO for 25 or 30 years or longer. How you do this does affect your profitability, at least the way you report it. And all I can tell you is that if you're on one system and just wake up one day and decide to go to another, it's not that easy. And I'm pretty sure the IRS has some strict guidelines that have to be adhered to. And the system you use, depending on whether you're depleting inventory or building inventory, can make you look falsely profitable or falsely not profitable. I mean, this is, like I said, I'm not a CFO. It's, something that probably got to get some CPA in here to really shed some light on that. But let's face it, we're in an inventory intensive business. And I say we, I'm not talking Kerr Lakeside. I'm talking everybody in this business. You have to have inventory. How you keep that stuff on your balance sheet matters. And it is something everybody should pay close attention to. And we take our advice. We have an outside accounting firm that comes in, and obviously, they monitor how we're doing things and give advice accordingly. Until I'd read this in your report, that was news to me. Now, once again, I'm not a financial guy, but most distributors, and, let's face it, Kerr Lakeside's not that big a company either. They probably depend on outside advisors to steer them along on what the right way to handle this would be. And my suggestion would be that if a sole proprietorship or a small corporation, and you really don't have someone on staff that's qualified to say this is what you have to do to make sure this works best for you, you probably should bring in an outside accountant to, hold your hand and say you have a decision to make, or just leave well enough alone. So, but that's kind of, I guess I really didn't say much to answer your question. But that's kind of what I would take on that.
Okay. Well, Holden was, again, he was a little surprised that people weren't more up in arms about that and the allegedly onerous implications of the taxation. So I'm not really a financial guy either, although I will say this, that especially during the 2008-2009 period, you've got the FIFO, you got the FILO. I heard a lot about the fish system, and I don't know how much this impacted you, but so you got FIFO first in, first out, then first in, last out, and then fish was first in, still here.
Thought that was going to come.
I can tell you, we've got a couple of first in, still here's too. It's over the years we've been throwing some stuff away that's like, hey, look, the screws have been around since the 1960s. Maybe we're like slotted flatheads, low carbon. We used to sell a lot of them. I don't think anybody even knows what they are anymore.
Right.
But, one thing that it's kind of, had a little bit of time to digest this. If the tax law is changed, obviously it's going to affect everybody that carries inventory one way or the other. And I suppose the fact that this is kind of news to me, and we are in an inventory intensive business, I should probably pay closer attention to it.
Right. Well, then turning the page on the conversation here, implications for the cliff and everything else going ahead. Were you surprised by the outcome of the elections?
My emotion was more distraughtness and not surprise. I did, when I talked to you originally, indicate that I thought Romney would win the election. He had a couple of states that he did not win that I thought he would. I was expecting him to win Florida, and he ran a tight race there, but obviously I think he lost Florida only by 103,000 votes. I thought he would also win Virginia. He didn't run quite as tight there as he should have, and I also thought he would have won Ohio. Now, one thing that I saw coming, and I'm not saying like when the election results were announced, it's not like, oh my God, how could this happen? For instance, there's a small church next to our facility, and they had, those shuttle buses that like run at the airports to the off-site parking lots and the rental car centers. They had those shuttle buses, and what they would do is they would load these things up and send people out into the neighborhoods, that precincts that, typically have, large Democratic voter registration, and remind people to vote. They did it on election day. I think I mentioned it to you last time I talked to you. My daughter is a registered Democrat. I wish that wasn't the case, but it is. Someone came to the house you're looking for it, making sure they dropped off a little postcard that said, "Dear Amanda, we're counting on your support on election day." That was a very effective get out the vote effort. Right. Romney didn't have anything to compete with that. And I initially thought Obama might have been suffering from an enthusiasm gap. Well, with the, they call it the ground game that he put together, I don't think there was much of an enthusiasm gap, because there are precincts in the Cuyahoga County area, that's where Cleveland's located, that had like 95% of the registered voters showed up and voted, and like 99% of them cast ballots to reelect the president. It's not unprecedented necessarily, but it's not typical for that heavy a turnout anywhere. So they did their job. Dick Morris was, running around, I think this is going to be a Romney electoral landslide. And of course, I believe what he said. And that's why I was disappointed and, a little bit upset. But if you look at the popular vote count, while Obama did win handily in the Electoral College, he did not win with that large a victory margin in the popular vote. And the Republicans did, I think they lost 2 or 3 seats in the House. They did still hold their majority. The Democrats picked up, I believe, 2 seats in the Senate. So they, strengthened their hand there. But basically what you have right now is the status quo. And if you would have told me that Obama was going to be reelected with the Electoral College victory he had, I would have assumed the Republicans would have lost control of the House to the Democrats. Mm-hmm. That is what I'm kind of not surprised about, but I find a little bit of a head scratcher, because, it's basically what the voters said was, we like everybody, right where they're at. And, right. I'm not understanding why. I mean, the economy's not doing well. There's some concerns about, let's face it, the people that voted for Romney definitely, I don't think were wavering between to vote for him or to vote to reelect the president. I think both camps had very clearly defined camps of support. And I'm a little bit, they're the so-called undecided voters. Given how different these two political philosophies are, I don't see how someone could have been undecided unless they just totally live in a cave and don't pay attention.
Right. Yeah, and we can analyze this forever, and there's been enough analysis. I think people's probably their attention on this is been totally spent. I appreciate your comments on that. My question to you would be, though, having seen what we saw, what does it mean for the fastener industry? Particularly, what is the potential outcome of the fiscal cliff, so-called, mean for the fastener industry? I mean, how's this going to affect us, Charlie?
Well, it's going to affect a lot of people adversely. I mentioned to you in a previous conversation that we had that the fiscal cliff has as one of its components is a reset of the estate tax. If on January 1st, if nothing's done, the estate tax will go to 55% with a $1 million exemption. And basically what that means is if your estate is worth $2 million, the first $1 million of the estate, you get a zero tax on it. Anything above and beyond that's taxed at 55%. That is, I forget the exact numbers right now, but the exemption is, I think, $5 million, and the tax rate might be 30%, 35%. So this is a huge change. Now, I pay close attention to it because we're a small, privately held company, family-owned business. My dad's 86, and quite frankly, he's not on his deathbed, but he's 86, and he looks every bit of it. And if he were to pass away, say on January 1st, when this estate tax resets, I'm deeply concerned that our family would be able to maintain ownership of the company. I'm also concerned that it'd be possible that the viability of the company could be threatened. Okay, so I have to sell the company. What if no one wants to buy the place? The IRS isn't going to say, well, when you get around to it, let us know.
Yeah.
You get in there, you close the doors, and you have to liquidate. And I would think that that's not going to happen, but this is something I can't control. One of the things that I went to a seminar once, and they were talking about succession planning and, whether you want to sell your business, what you should consider. And the speaker, one of the things he said that really stuck with me, the worst circumstances to sell your company under is because you have to do it. If you need to sell your business for whatever reason, you have absolutely no bargaining power than if you want to sell your business and you can wait until someone who needs to buy your business shows up. It was something I use these terms very deliberately. If you're in a negotiation and the person across the table from you needs what you're negotiating over, you're in the driver's seat. At least you have an upper hand. If you need to sell or buy what they have the advantage. And trust me, if the IRS is wondering when the estate tax bill is going to get paid, you need to do something. And there's family farms that would be affected by this. There's distributorships that would be affected by this. And now, granted, not everybody's going to have an estate tax issue in a given year. But where it also becomes a problem is if you have, this, I call it draconian reset of the estate tax. Let's say you're my age. I'm 57. I've done some estate planning, but it wasn't based on a, $1 million exemption and a 55% tax rate. So then I got to go back to the drawing board. 2 years later, they might change it. This has been a moving target my entire life.
Yeah.
It makes it for people that are, and I think most distributorships and suppliers to distributorships, with a few exceptions, are smaller businesses where the people that own the place come in the office every day. You're supposed to be wondering how to take care of your customers, keep them supplied with your product at a competitive price that covers the cost. And now you got to worry about figuring out how to get around this latest, IRS consideration. It makes running a business very difficult, if not impossible.
Well, it certainly sets the government up in an adversarial role to business, and this is what you hear a lot of. So, of course, there's people who deny that, but you had a similar experience to this in New Zealand back in the day, didn't you, Brian?
Yeah. When I lived in New Zealand, the estate tax was 90%. What Britain has had at various times too, and it had a profound effect because it meant that if you had a farm, you couldn't possibly really sell it. You first of all couldn't give it to one of your sons because you paid 90% gift tax as well. So the son, if you had a farm, it couldn't stay in the family. It had to be sold. And then couldn't really be bought by, one of the sons unless they saddled themselves with massive debt. And the net really result was that New Zealand, which when I grew up and then lived there, it was a farming country. It stopped being a farming country. It was too much money tied up in farms that were not able to make enough money to support the debts that were incurred to cover these estate taxes. And as you know now, the New Zealand is sort of nowhere, but it's certainly not a farming country now. It's not worth it.
Well, one thing that, a lot of entrepreneurs, we're all, different ages, but there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are starting to get, gray hair, if they still have it. And, it's just
light brown is the way you describe it.
This is an issue for me. Like I said, my dad's not in real good health. He's not, in the hospital or anything like that. but it's a concern to me. And it's not a concern to me because Charlie Kerr could be personally affected by this. There are 75 people that work at our company. Half of them have been with us for 20 to 25 years or longer. You know, we've been around since 1948. I just don't understand how politicians cannot understand that they could put a company like that that's got nothing wrong with it out of business for no other reason than tax policy that they have complete control over.
That would imply that any one of them actually had some experience in business.
Well, they don't. A lot of them are lawyers and, come from other, walks of life. But I will say this, if there is going to be an estate tax, there should be no exemption at all. And I know that sounds a little bit inconsistent with the thread that I might have been following earlier in the discussion. Right now the exemption, I'm pretty sure, is $5 million. That would remove a lot of privately held, family-run businesses from exposure to the tax. But why should a larger company, or the person that's built a larger company, get clobbered because his business is worth $8 or $9 million and someone else is only worth $4? And I believe that even if you inherit a house that's worth, say, $150,000 or $200,000 from your parents, if the estate tax rate is 15 or 20%, anything you inherit, you got to pay the tax on. And the reason why I'm an adamant advocate for, if you're going to have an estate tax, not to have an exemption, everybody that stands to inherit property is going to be affected by that. And you're not going to have one or two lone voices out there saying this is a bad idea. You're going to have people of modest financial means be adversely affected. And when you get a lot of people screaming at the same time, that's when the politicians start to listen.
Yeah, well, they talk a lot about skin in the game, but that doesn't really seem to be the true philosophy, because if you look down the line, skin in the game really only applies to certain people. And that's one of my big problems. They talk about equality. Well, now listen, turning the subject away for a moment from the inheritance part of it, I mean, that's a big thing. But what else do you see in terms of the overall tax landscape with this cliff, so-called, that we have to think about, Charlie? What else is there to the whole thing?
Well, a lot of distributors are probably not incorporated. They're probably subchapter S. And what that basically means is the income of the business is their income. And you don't have to have too big of a business to have $250,000 worth of reportable income. And a lot of people, one thing I want to digress for a second, just put this in perspective. They talk about the 1%ers. Do you know what the threshold is for annual income to be considered in the top 1%?
No.
I would have assumed it would have been well over $1 million a year.
Yeah, that seems intuitive.
It's $325,000. Now, trust me, if you're making $325,000 a year, you're probably driving a nice car, you probably live in a nice neighborhood, you probably go on nice vacations. You are not what I would consider filthy rich.
No.
If you're making 10 times that, yeah, I guess you're, pretty rich. But it's not that uncommon for somebody in that income. They're talking about $250,000. I think that's 2%, the population. Well, if you get a bunch of people out there, they're going to see their tax bill double. And they think, gee, I have to make investment decisions. I have to make, decisions about whether I want to expand my business. That's going to be a very dampening effect on enthusiasm to invest and grow companies. And usually a smaller company has more growth potential than a larger company, just because it's small. Let's face it, there's some distributors out there, I'll throw McMaster Car out because they're, a very large one. They can grow, but it would be really difficult for them to double in size in terms of the number of employees they have and, their sales numbers in, say, a 2 or 3 year period, the way a distributorship could.
Yeah, that's true.
Or, some other small business like that. So I think that, if this fiscal cliff happens, there's real potential for a calamity. I'm not predicting, because I'm not an economist. I'm only really repeating what I've heard other people say. Some people say it won't be quite that bad. Some people think, look, this is the only way we're going to get government spending under control is through sequestration. I'm not so sure how reducing government spending real sudden like that will affect the economy, but most of the sequestration is going to come from defense.
Yeah.
And defense and manufacturing and fastener distributors are all in the same canoe on that one. Even if you don't supply aerospace or the Department of Defense, you're competing with people who do, and if they lose market share or have holes in their sales to fill, they're going to be going after everybody else's customers to pick up what's left. So there is the potential for some serious negative outcomes in this.
Yeah, for sure. And, I also got to add, every time you say the word sequestration, for some reason I get a pain in my groin. Oh, yeah. God.
You're terrified you're going to put the word carbon in front of it.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Now, having said everything that you just did, if you had to guess, and given the current conversation in Washington related to this fiscal cliff, what do you think? How's this going to play out?
Well, I'm not sure what to tell you because I think tax increases for everybody of a modest amount are probably realistic to expect. But, supposedly, Boehner and the Republicans are digging in their heels and say, look, we're not going to raise taxes on one small percentage of the population just so the president of the United States can go back to his constituents and say we got revenge. I really think that the president and people like Senator Sherrod Brown from Ohio have deep-seated animosity toward people who have been financially successful. And I really believe when the president was running for re-election and he made that comment about the best way to get revenge, I don't think that was a slip of the tongue.
No, I don't either.
I think he's very comfortable letting this fiscal cliff happen because the people that are going to take the worst haircuts from it are the ones he doesn't like to begin with.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't answer your question. I didn't make a prediction. Politically, the president has nothing to lose. He's not running for re-election. He's going to blame everything on the Republicans, and he might get away with it. In the meantime, if unemployment goes up to 13 or 14%, the people that got clobbered hardest are not going to be the 2%ers that earn $250,000 a year or more. It's going to be the people punching the time clocks, going into the factories or going into the distributorships that might be making a third of $250,000 a year, or maybe less, or maybe a little bit more, and they're going to lose their job through no fault of their own.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. I think at that point we're all cliff jumpers, my friend. I hate to say it.
Well, hopefully cooler heads will prevail, and they'll come up with a way so that there's no drastic, tax increases for anybody. There's no drastic spending cuts. And, I'd like to see social spending cut back. There's some entitlement programs, I think, like food stamps right now. Hey, America, let me ask you a question. Do you think there's an obesity problem in this country?
Well, based on my visits to Walmart, I'd have to say yes.
But there is a number of people that are overweight, and yet there's more people on food stamps in this country than any time in the country's history. It's like, what's wrong with this picture? Do we have a hunger problem or do we have a weight problem?
No, I get your meaning.
I'm going to stick way away from this one.
Well, I'm starting to get on a little bit of a soapbox here, but I think there's a lot of social programs that really don't need to be funded as heavily as they are.
Right. Well, the pity of it is that the entitlement freight train that's coming down the tracks right at us probably dwarfs this whole so-called fiscal cliff issue, and it's nowhere on the horizon in terms of the public discourse. That's the real tragedy, and I think both of you guys would agree on that. But, we just got to take these things as they come. So,
I think that cutting spending is nowhere on the horizon. I think that the public have been completely misled and sidetracked into the issue that the whole thing is about making these rich people pay a few more taxes. Do you ever hear anyone talk about the fact that we need to cut spending?
Well, I say that all the time, but I think I'm preaching the audience. One thing that I do want to throw out, I went to a program put on by an investment firm, and they made some predictions for 2013. And in a nutshell, what they predicted was that if something does go wrong, the private sector will not be as adversely affected by it as the public sector would be. And as they started to expand on it, they said, first time we went through this back in 2007, 2008, 2009, this was a private sector balance sheet problem. A lot of debt and a lot of collateral was used to collect the debt that was losing value. The public sector is going through their own balance sheet problem right now, whether it's municipalities, county government, state government. The federal government can print money so they can muddle their way through problems that the lower subdivisions of government can't. If you are a distributor and you have large, let's say you're in the guardrail bolt business, the State Highway Department of Transportation is a very large customer of yours.
Yep.
Pay very close attention to this, because the municipalities, the counties, and the states all have pension funding issues. They deny it, but they're there. And if there is going to be a recession next year, this investment advisor said that the more closely tied to the public sector you are, the worse it's going to grab you. Now, Kerr Lakeside, we do no business at all with the government. Maybe some of our distributor customers do, and we're not aware of it. So I feel pretty good that if that happens, we're going to be isolated from it. But the balance sheets of government entities are in bad shape. And at some point, that's going to have to be dealt with. And these guys think it's going to be dealt with in either 2013 or 2014. And, it's almost 2013. 14's for all practical purposes, 380 days away. So this is something people, I think, should start paying closer attention to, is what's going on with the finances of any government entity that you have a business relationship with.
Or you could just look at Illinois and work out that the state of Illinois has managed to completely pay no attention to the same problem you're talking about for something like 20 years. I mean, the state of Illinois is $80 billion in unfunded liabilities for retirements and, state grants and things. $80 billion is a hell of a lot of money.
Well, there's a ball of string right there, guys. I don't know that we're going to be able to
no,
untangle on this episode,
yeah.
But what you're both saying is true. I mean, these issues are going to come down, and they're going to catch up with us pretty soon.
I think they're catching up with us already.
Yep. Well, I got to ask you this, Bri. Are there a lot of cliffs in the New Zealand area that we can use for this type of activity, cliff jumping, or what's that like?
No, you have to. Acapulco, I think, is where they are.
Is that
New
where
Zealand
it is?
ones are a little bit. They're mountainous, but not perilously mountainous.
We were talking before we started recording about accents and what your deep South accent's all about. And I got to ask you this, Charlie, before we wrap it up. Is there a Cleveland accent that we should be aware of? Is that what we hear when we hear you speak, Cleveland accent?
Nah, I would call it a Midwestern accent. I travel a lot, as I mentioned to you. When I go to Chicago, go to Detroit, people sound the same to me. Now, if I go to Pittsburgh, which is only, maybe 120 miles away from Cleveland, there's an accent there. There's even accents like you go into, central and southern Ohio. I find it, it's kind of interesting. But I think as people move around, let's face it, my kids grew up in Cleveland. I just know they're not going to spend the rest of their lives here. Population centers are starting to be populated with people that aren't natives. And I think you're going to see, maybe in our lifetimes, going to a place like New Orleans where people have a very distinct accent, I think that's going to diminish.
Just a side issue on accents. If you are a New Zealander or an Australian, you of course know that the difference in accents is profound. No one else can tell any difference. I see there was a court case in New Zealand within the last 2 days where a New Zealander calling his neighbour an Australian or an Aussie was considered a hate crime. It's being dealt with in the courts there at the moment.
Oh man, that makes about as much sense as our political discussions right now in Washington, I tell you.
This is true.
Well, guys, I think that's probably a good cliff for us to jump off of this segment on, and I sure do appreciate you joining us, Charlie Kerr.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and like I said, hopefully several months down the road, something else will come up that you'll find me well suited to chime in on, and I'll get another opportunity to join you.
You got it.
I hope you're not totally correct in some of your predictions, too. Okay.
We'll see you at the bottom, guys.
Yep. Okay.
You ever have that dream where you're helplessly falling? That's kind of like the closing segment on today's show. Stick around, it's fully threaded. When top quality and outstanding service are at the top of your list in fastener suppliers, turn to Stellfast. Since 1976, Stellfast has grown to become an industry-leading importer and manufacturer of the highest quality industrial fasteners, specialty items, and automotive parts. Our array of facilities across North America and in Asia, along with full quality control labs and ISO 9001-2008 certifications, ensure the highest quality parts, and at Stellfast, they're delivered with undisputed service excellence. We're family-run and dedicated to your success. Our customers have come to depend on the expertise of our staff and the quality of our products. We also offer a wide range of secondary services to meet some of the toughest requirements you might have. Contact Stellfast today through our website at www.stellfast.com and put us to work for you. Stellfast. Service you deserve, people you trust.
Hi everyone, it's Brian Musker. If you're listening to Fully Threaded, then you're no doubt aware of the FCH sourcing network found at fastenersclearinghouse.com. You've probably also heard about our legendary scrubber software that makes listing your inventory on FCH a snap. But have you heard about the new FCH SmartLink interface? With SmartLink, users of Business Edge, InSequel, and Distribution One have a new weapon in the war against excess inventory, because each of these platforms now links directly to the FCH scrubber system through an automated interface. The best part is that this new tool is available at no additional charge to FCH members who use Business Edge, InSequel, or Distribution One. With SmartLink, you can keep your inventory listings up to date with the click of a button, so it's a win-win for all FCH users. The new FCH FastLink interface is really big news, and we'll be thrilled to have your company using it. Business Edge, InSequel, and Distribution One users should contact their software provider for details, or just call me, Brian Musker. You can reach me through the FCH website at www.fastenersclearinghouse.com. That's fasteners with an S, and the S is for scrubber.
Our hearts are in fasteners, so join us in the heart of the fastener industry for Fastener Tech 13. This is Nancy Rich, Fastener Tech Show Manager, inviting you to join us June 10th through 12th for an event hosted by Midwest Fastener Association and Fastener Technology International and sponsored by Fastener Industry Groups. This is an event produced by the fastener industry for the fastener industry. Its success returns to the industry through scholarships, education, and various other programs. Fastener Tech allows many fastener and fastener-related companies a great opportunity to meet with their industry and source many products in one location. The trade show will feature fastener manufacturers, heat treaters, platers, and other fastener service companies. Fastener Tech will also feature educational and industry informational seminars. You'll also have the chance to enjoy several social events. Your time at Fastener Tech will include great networking opportunities. Fastener Tech 13 will be held at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois. Be part of an event bringing American industry together. More details of this event may be found at www.fastenertech.com or at www.mwfa.net.
Brian and Eric, Fully Threaded Radio. It's Fastener Dog Approved Talk Radio for the fastener industry.
Hi, this is John Butler with K&L Sales. I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a safe and Happy New Year. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric, back with you for the long haul, despite whatever those rascally Mayans might have had in mind.
Right. Yeah, I saw a thing on, I don't know which website it was, but they pointed out that whenever they talk about the end of the world, according to the Mayans, they show a picture of the Aztec calendar instead of the Mayan calendar.
Yep, pop culture for you. But don't worry, it is definitely and undisputably a portention of the end of humanity and the end of time. So they've got that part of it right.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that was a great conversation with Charlie Kerr, and as usual, he had a lot to say, and I guess we shouldn't really be surprised that he falls down on that whole issue the way he does.
Yep, he's got a lot at stake. We all have a lot at stake, actually.
We really do, and we all have our fingers crossed that somehow, one way or another, we're going to get a deal that we can all live with. We know it's not going to be painless, but at least let's hope that it makes some semblance of sense when it's all said and done.
Right.
It's kind of hard to take all of that seriously when you've got a fastener dog in the background barking away.
Oh, I'm sort of used to that, actually.
For those of you who caught that there was a little canine in the background there on that last segment with Charlie Kerr, at first I thought that it was Jack the fastener dog over in Brian's end, and Charlie was quick to point out that no, in fact, in this case it was Wendy the fastener dog. She is a golden lab with a pink nose and loves fasteners, and, well, she's been immortalized on Fully Threaded Radio now.
Right, she has the same trouble with the FedEx and the UPS man that Jack the fastener dog has.
Exactly.
Find it very troubling when they arrive.
Well, they're on their toes, doing their jobs, right?
Yeah, barking and wagging the tail.
So I suppose we should thank Wendy the fastener dog for her appearance on this episode of Fully Threaded Radio, as well as the rest of our guests, and they were from Kerr Lakeside, Mr. Charlie Kerr. From Specialty Bolt and Screw and the NFDA, Jay Queenin. Ruth Dowling from Ningbo Jinding. BB&T Capital Markets analyst Holden Lewis presented the Fastener Distributor Index numbers for us today. And, of course, Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International magazine. Let's also take a moment to thank our sponsors on today's episode of Fully Threaded, and they were Stellfast. For service you deserve and people you trust, it's Stellfast. Beacon Fasteners and Components, Beacon Fasteners, nice threads. Let's also thank Trinity Hardware Headquarters, Fastenal, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Fastener Technology International magazine.
Thanks to all of you. Appreciate it.
And we look forward to hearing what you thought of today's episode and anything that happens to be on your mind Fully Threaded related. And you can do so at the email address ftr@fullythreaded.com, and check out our Facebook page. We have a bunch of links from the show, and you can communicate with us that way as well.
And also, if you're still unsure as to how to listen to Fully Threaded on your phone, you'll find the links there that will tell you how to do it and how to subscribe to the podcast, okay?
Well, those are on fullythreaded.com. And, of course, if you're a Twitter user, get with us at the handle Fully Threaded. And speaking of Twitter, Bri, I saw a tweet fly by today from Fastener Suppliers. Their handle is @FastenerSup, and they were suggesting everybody send them their fondest holiday memories. Man, that's a big one to write out in 140 characters. But
right. So it can't have been a very impressive memory if you can do the whole lot in like full words.
Well, yeah, that's probably true. But, it's a thought that counts. And I tried to do the best I could, and I tweeted out that one of my fondest holiday memories for sure was actually kind of, at the time, an unorthodox Christmas when it was the first time my family, we went down to Belize. And, we'd been typically always very traditional, staying in Chicago, freezing our butts off. And that year, this is several years ago now, but we decided to get out of it all and go down to the warmth. And well, while we were down there on Ambergris Key, I had the encounter of, at the same resort, there was Dr. Atkins, and he was sitting there at the bar and on the beach, and we were seeing him all over and talking to him, and he was writing his famous diet book, and he was sitting there with a piece of paper and a pen and actually hammering that thing out longhand. And, of course, we didn't know who he was at the time, and he didn't really have that big of a name, but it was kind of interesting because within the year, the whole Atkins diet phenomenon burst on the scene. And so, that was kind of nutty. And we were talking about the Mayans earlier. And
yeah.
That's one of the cool things about Belize is you could take day trips, and we flew into the interior of the country and saw some Mayan ruins. And I remember looking at the giant rock-carved calendars. And what do they call those things? Baktuns?
that is one of the periods of the year, I think.
Well, I think it's a group of years, and at the end of the Baktuns is when these new phases start. And they were talking about the end of the calendar, and I never would have guessed that it would have made this big of a popular media. But there you have it. Shows you what I know.
Right.
It was a really great Christmas.
Yes, and I was trying to think of what was memorable for me. One of them, and I couldn't say whether it would be in the United States or New Zealand, but when I first came to the United States 30 years ago, I didn't know a single person in my first Christmas here, and so I decided I was in Dallas. I decided to take a trip by myself, and I drove right around the perimeter of Texas, and that was really, really fascinating. I got to see a lot of it, so I learned a lot about Texas in that trip.
That doesn't sound very Christmassy at all, Bri.
Well, it was sort of interesting. It wasn't Christmassy, but I just didn't know anyone over here then. And I also was thinking back to my time in New Zealand. Of course, in the Southern Hemisphere, Christmas is the middle of summer. And as kids, we would be receiving these Christmas cards, all of which were printed in England or America, and so they all were covered in pictures of houses with snow and stuff on them, and none of us had ever seen snow.
Right, and you were all getting like Speedos in your stockings.
Yeah, well, whatever. But so the deal was that we were always at the beach for Christmas, and Christmas Day was a completely wasted day for us because we couldn't be at the beach, and we had to come in and get dressed up on these in really hot days so that we could sit inside and have these horrible Christmas dinners, which we learned later to love. But as kids, it was sort of just a big interruption in between going to the beach.
See, I knew there was a Speedo involved.
I didn't say that. You said that.
Yeah, but it's a point well taken. So many of the things that when we're kids, we don't want to have anything to do with. The older we get, the more nostalgic we get for that stuff, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't think that one would fit into 140 characters very easily either, but thanks for sharing. And I hope Fastener Suppliers gets a couple of good ones that they can put up on their site and share with everybody.
Yeah, right.
And that's what the season's all about. And we'll wind this episode of Fully Threaded down. And just before we do, let me say that this is the last episode of the season, and it's Christmas time, of course. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening to Fully Threaded during the past year and for sending us your occasional comments and well wishes, and especially for not sending any nasty emails to our sponsors. Very grateful for that.
Right.
It's been a good year in many ways, and it's also been a very trying year, too. And I'm just glad that we're part of an industry full of good people, and I'm looking ahead to making the best of whatever comes along our way in the new year. So, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yep. I look forward to catching up with you again in the new year. Have a great Christmas holiday, Hanukkah, whatever one you celebrate, and we'll look forward to hooking up again in the new year.
For Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll talk to you in 2013.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fastener's Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.
La!